Retro anime recommendations. That was the series that really started my channel in a lot of ways. It was always fun to put together, and the restrictions I put on it, that I had to talk about 3 shows from a given decade of differing popularity, was at least to me what made an otherwise just normal recommendation series into a pretty fun experience. But the truth is that those videos were never really about the big shows. Those were just eye-catchers. What I really wanted was to use those more popular shows to shine some light on the less popular ones. But because of the style and restrictions I made on those videos, I ended up running out of ways to continue it, at least in a way that I was satisfied with, after 3 rounds. The reason for this is because I was just straight up running out of 70s shows that I actually felt were good enough to recommend to people. And while I could have stopped including 70s shows, I felt that wasn't really something I wanted to do, just so that I could keep going with that format. Actually including shows from the 70s was another thing that made that series stand out in some ways. There aren't exactly a whole lot of people who talk about 70s anime here on YouTube, which is understandable. But it has now been over a year since I ended that series, and part of me wants to bring it back. But I don't think I can bring it back in the same way that I used to do it, so I came up with another idea. I still have a lot of retro series, both popular and not, that I want to recommend, that for one reason or another didn't fit into the retro recommendation series. So today, I'm bringing you guys a new recommendation series. A monthly anime recommendation, where I will talk about one show that I didn't recommend before. So I hope you guys are gonna enjoy this, and let me know in the comments if you want me to keep doing these, or if you think I should change something. Anyways, let's move on to the first recommendation in this new series. That is the amazing series known as Master Keaton. Alright, so Master Keaton is a 39-episode, episodic, historic, military, adventure, drama, mystery, slice of life, action, whatever. Different episodes, different genres a lot of the time. It was produced by Studio Madhouse and consisted of a 24-episode TV series that ran from October 6th, 1998 to March 29th, 1999, with a 15-episode OVA following it that came out between December 21st, 1999 and June 20th, 2000. Master Keaton is an adaptation of the manga series of the same name that was written by Hokusei Katsuhika, Naoki Urasawa, and Takashi Nagasaki, and was serialized in Big Comic Original from November 1988 to August 1994. But the reason why I had my eye on this was because of Naoki Urasawa, who both wrote and did the art for this manga. And if you don't know why, that's because Urasawa is the man who would go on to write some other little known works like Monster or 20th Century Boys, just to name a few. There was also a 1-volume sequel manga called Master Keaton Remaster that was also written by Naoki Urasawa and Takashi Nagasaki. This manga takes place 20 years after the event of the original manga. So let's talk about the story. So like I said earlier, Master Keaton is an episodic series, and as such, there isn't much of an overarching plot. But the one constant that is in most of the episodes is our main character, Taichi Keaton, a half-British, half-Japanese veteran of the Special Air Service, or SAS of the British Army, who served in the Falkland Wars. He now works as an insurance investigator, or an op, for the insurance company Lloyd's, as well as studying archaeology, and occasionally, he works as a university lecturer. Not that he gets to do much of that, as his work as an op has him traveling to many places around the world. Keaton gets involved in all sorts of weird situations, like meeting an immortal man named Andrei Semenov, who owes the Russian mafia a huge debt and is running from them. Or hanging out with Yugoslavian refugees and meeting the former Olympic swimmer Carl Neumann, who has given up on life after he was exposed for doping. But really, all Keaton wants to do is continue his archaeological research into the possible origins of an ancient European civilization in the Danube River basin. Now, one of the reasons why Master Keaton is such an enjoyable show to watch is our main character himself, Taichi Keaton, a half-Japanese, half-British man who is the son of Japanese zoologist Taihei Hiraga and well-born Englishwoman Patricia Keaton. Taichi Keaton is not only an absolute badass, he's also a dad and kinda dorky. This makes him a bit more of a believable character than he otherwise would be. He rides a fine line between badass manly man action hero and your average middle-aged dad. Like I said earlier, he's a former SAS of the British Army, and he took part in the Iranian embassy siege in the 1980s, which is a real event that happened in South Kensington in London, where a group of Iranian Arabs took 26 people working at and visiting the embassy hostage, and killing one hostage before it was decided that the SAS would attempt to siege the embassy and rescue the remaining hostages. This 17-minute raid was nicknamed Operation Nimrod, and the SAS rescued all but one of the hostages, killing 5 of the 6 hostage takers, while the final one was arrested and ended up having to serve 27 years in jail in Britain. He also served in the Falkland War and held a position as a survival expert, something that comes in very handy for him in certain episodes, like the first episode of the OVA, or episode 25 if you will, where Keaton and some archaeologists end up getting captured and ditched in the desert of the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. Keaton has to put all of his survival expertise to use in order to make sure that not only him, but also the others manage to make it out of the scorching desert and back to safety alive. So yeah, Keaton is quite the badass. But that is just one side of Keaton, and that stuff doesn't even always come into play. The other side of Keaton is that he's a big fan of archaeology and really wants to do that as a job, rather than staying as an insurance op. He also really values knowledge and does some work here and there as a visiting lecturer at universities. Not only that, but Keaton is also divorced and has a 15-year-old daughter named Yuriko Hiraga, who is quite mature for her age and also has an interest in archaeology. All in all, despite his crazy military background and survival expertise, Keaton still comes off as just another guy a lot of the time. A man with his own dreams, and a crushing reality that stands in the way of that dream. A family man, even if that family has been broken up. And all in all, just an interesting character to witness as he goes about doing his job. Alright, so what is it that makes this anime special? There are 2 things that I would immediately highlight as the reasons for this. Because if we're being honest, this show shouldn't work. On the outside, it's confused and can't find a line or genre that it wants to stick to, and kinda just jumps all over the place. Whether it be slice of life, drama, action, thriller, or comedy. But in my opinion, one of this show's strengths is the backbone of realism. You see, this show manages to keep itself grounded by using history and real events, like the earlier mentioned Operation Nimrod or the Falkland Wars. It helps set the scene for the characters in a quick way that allows the viewer to understand them a bit better, since these would be relevant events in the 80s. So no matter how unbelievable a character like Taichi Keaton might seem, the grounded and realistic setting helps connect the viewer to him. The other strength of this show is how every episode serves as its own little story, with interesting developments that makes them fascinating. A good example of this in my opinion is episode 14 of the TV series. In this episode, Keaton is tasked by a man named Schreider to help find his former wife Louise that he left back in East Germany 18 years ago. She was pregnant at the time, and because of that, she couldn't escape to West Germany together with her husband. They managed to find some leads on former guards at the camp that might know what happened to them, and it's confirmed that Louise did give birth to a baby girl named Rosa. But sadly, Louise was one of the casualties in a concentration camp, after which Rosa went missing. The driver of one of the former guards at the concentration camp gives Schreider a list over all the children that were adopted from the camp, but as they track her down, they learn that Rosa caused a scandal and ran away 5 years ago after injuring her adoptive father. As they seem to have exhausted all of their leads, and Schreider is ready to give up, they meet a woman who seems to know Rosa. She tells them that Rosa is out to get revenge on her biological father for having abandoned her and her mother. We then learn of Rosa's new identity, her whereabouts, as well as some of the horrible things that have happened to her growing up. All of that is packed into a single episode, and packs quite the impact. Obviously not every episode is as packed as this one, but that is the general style the show goes with in its episodic story-based structure. It's not easy to pull off, but in my opinion, Master Keaton does quite an amazing job at it. And that is why it works so well, despite the fact that it often feels like this show is changing genres between episodes. So basically, is Master Keaton a show that is worth checking out? Absolutely yes. Especially if you're a fan of Urasawa's other works, like Monster or 20th Century Boys, and you for some reason haven't seen or read this already. But also if you're a fan of episodic shows and good characters. Obviously there isn't as much character development for a lot of the minor characters here, as there would be in a show that isn't episodic, but in my opinion, it still does a great job fleshing out its characters as much as needed, in the time that they have. The grounded setting and interesting historical tie-ins is really what makes this show stand out. As far as the weaknesses of this show, I would say there are mainly 2 things. Both of them are tied to this being episodic. So for one, I would say that the quality of the show can swing a bit with the episodes. Some episodes, like episode 14 for example, hit way harder than other episodes. Some of the stories are just more interesting than others. But this is pretty much always the case with episodic shows. The other weakness is that I wish there were more multiple episode stories. In a lot of episodic shows, it's normal to have at least one story that spans more than a single episode, and Master Keaton is no different, namely episode 38 and 39, which are the two final episodes of the OVA, that both tell the story of a former sergeant in the SAS named James Wolfe. He is skilled in knife combat and was an instructor in close quarters combat. Taichi Keaton was actually one of his students, but Wolfe was discharged from the military after attacking a colleague. Wolfe also hates drugs, and has killed a former military agent who was a drug smuggler, and has now made an enemy of the Corsican Mafia after he kills some of them and saves a prostitute. Keaton has been brought in to help hunt down Wolfe and put him on trial for the murder of said drug smuggling soldier. These two episodes were quite interesting and a very good way to send off the show in my opinion, but I would have also liked to see them do a few more of these double episode stories as well. A lot of the single episode stories are quite interesting, but it would have been nice to see what they could have done with some of them if they had been just a little bit longer and had been fleshed out a bit more. Still, this is honestly just nitpicking on my end. The show is really good and a very enjoyable watch. I highly recommend it. Alright, so before we end, there is one fun fact about the Master Keaton manga especially that I want to address. It concerns who actually made this manga. So earlier in the video, I said it was written by Hokusei Katsuhika, Naoki Urasawa, and Takashi Nagasaki. But originally, this manga was written by Hokusei Katsuhika, while Urasawa did the art. But in an interview Andrew Osman did with Urasawa, that is published on All the Anime's blog, Urasawa mentions that Master Keaton came about based on his ideas for the characters, and that it was planned for him to also work on the story. But as he was still a young mangaka at the time, and was already working on another manga called Yawara, the editorial team was concerned that he wouldn't be able to do both. So they opted to get other writers in. That is why, for example, Takashi Nagasaki came on board, who has worked with Urasawa multiple times, for example on Monster, as a co-producer. Alright, so those were my thoughts on Master Keaton. A show I randomly stumbled upon and got very interested in as I saw that Naoki Urasawa had worked on the manga, and a show that ended up being a lot better than I originally thought that it would be. So now I pass the question over to you. Have you seen Master Keaton? Does it sound like something you'd want to check out? Or does the episodic nature and lack of a single defining genre throw you off? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I should probably also address the elephant in the room, like where I've been for the last few months and why I haven't uploaded. Before Christmas, I was busy with exams and I decided to take a break and just rest until the new year. That is about the only time I actually have an excuse for though. The rest of the time I haven't been uploading, I've simply been procrastinating. It's not like I haven't been working on any videos, but I made very little progress on stuff, and the scripts that I did get a bit further with, I just lost interest in, or wasn't feeling for one reason or another. So because of that, a new video just kept dragging out, and I'm sorry for that. Hopefully I'll be able to get back to making videos on a bit more of a regular basis, because 7 videos all last year was just not good enough. But I don't feel comfortable saying that I will return to making videos on a set schedule, at least not until I've actually proven to you, and myself, that I can. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more anime-related videos from me. Hopefully on a more consistent schedule this year than last. Peace.